want to thank Senator Flake for his leadership on this. It's not easy. You've been on this issue for a long time. And Senator Leahy, thank you for your leadership. And it was a joy to work with you on the Alan Gross case and now on this next chapter. We tried it for 50 years. We said if we closed the door on Cuba, Cuba would change. We did not succeed in that policy. It's time for a new policy, a policy that we know is proven to work. Look at what happened when the Soviet Union finally disintegrated. It disintegrated because the Warsaw Pact nations and many Soviet republics took a look outside and said there's a better world to the west. Well, the same is true when it comes to Cuba. We don't have to set out to change Cuba as our number one reason, but I think we're going to see dramatic change in Cuba if there is more travel, exchange, and business between our two countries. When I flew over to join with Senator Leahy's delegation, I took what was called a charter flight out of Miami to Havana. I didn't know what to expect. Two-engine plane, a four-engine plane. It was a 737, and it was filled with people traveling into Havana, many of them Americans, who were traveling on tours that were acceptable. So we're finding that there's an appetite for Americans to visit Cuba. I walked the streets of Havana early in the morning before our meeting started and had the same experience Senator Leahy did. It was a welcoming. And as we met with the dissidents in Cuba, those who disagree with the Castro regime, 10 out of 12 of them said this is the right thing to do. People finally have a sense of hope in Cuba, that things are going to change for the better. So let's eliminate this restriction on Americans traveling. This is the only country in the world where we have these restrictions on Americans. Let's give our people a chance to travel, and they will not only bring money to spend, they're going to bring new ideas, new values, and real change to Cuba.
We've seen change, in other places. Senator Leahy, you talked about how in Germany it's seamless now, but when we normalize relations in China, some people would say, good for business, not good for human rights. Senator Flake, you said, we're not going to see democracy tomorrow. Why are you so optimistic that, there will be change through these interpersonal relations when maybe some of these other places it hasn't worked?
90 miles. They're 90 miles away. It isn't as if the United States is halfway around the world. The powdered milk that they serve as a milk product to the children in Cuba is imported from New Zealand. They're 90 miles away from the United States. When you look at it, we're clearly, by our proximity, in a better shape to have an impact on the future of Cuba than any other nation. And I'm not suggesting we're going to see Cuba change overnight, but by having these exchanges, by opening up, for example, Cuba to the internet, the world of the internet, we are going to see an acceleration of debate, an acceleration of the exchange of ideas. All these things, I think, are in the best interests of Cuba and the United States.